everybody. My name is Rei Akazawa-Smith. I play Liat in South Pacific, and I am originally from Tokyo.
I'm Delphi Borich. I was in Little Mermaid this past season. I played Ariel. I also was in Beauty and the Beast in 2018. Yeah, and I'm originally from Japan as well, but kind of from LA, and now I'm in New York.
Hi, I am Melody Butiu. I played Bloody Mary in South Pacific this season. Where am I originally from? I was born in New York, raised in Washington State, and I now live in Los Angeles, California. And South Pacific was my very first show at TUTS, so I was thrilled to be a part of the season.
Hi, I'm Yasmyn Sumiyoshi. This season at TUTS, I swung Sister Act. I was Aquata in Little Mermaid, and I was in the ensemble of South Pacific, and I got to understudy Rei as Liat. And I was born and raised in San Antonio, Texas, and I guess it's not recent anymore, but I moved to New York in 2020, so now I live in New York.
That's awesome. Okay, cool. Yeah, I just am really excited because I feel like this season told so many different stories. And what I really loved, and the reason that I'm the one who runs the social media accounts, the feedback I got from all of you, like from sharing clips and videos of all of you performing, was just so overwhelmingly like excited. And there were some really cool conversations. One of my favorite was when Delphi was playing Ariel, we had someone who was cosplaying as Delphi as Ariel, which I thought was really cool, you know? And so then the conversations during South Pacific were really neat. We had a lot of people being like, this is really cool to hear, you know, how you're going deep with this story. And so I'm really excited to get to kind of get y'all all together and have these conversations. And Yasmin as well, like having you seeing all of the different stories that we're a part of is kind of, I think it's really cool because you were a mermaid, but then you were also, you know, a nurse in the 1940s. That's a lot. That's really cool.
Yeah, she can do it all.
Exactly. So I love it. So I want to go ahead and start kind of with what the intention of this call is what does AAPI Heritage Month mean to you? Why is this month important? And you know, why are you here? Why do you want to talk about this today?
I've been reflecting on AAPI Heritage Month, and to me, why it's so important is it reiterates how important our stories are, especially as Asian Americans. That our stories, our experiences, our perspective is part of the fabric of the American story.
Awesome. I love it. All right. Let's do Yasmin. You want to go next?
Sure. Yeah, that was incredible. I completely agree with all of that. I think just sharing the stories and trying to show other Americans, other people in general, that being like Asian American Pacific Islander, there's such a wide amount of things that encompasses. Like I myself am still learning. Personally, I'm half Mexican, and then I'm about 12% Japanese and the rest Indian. So it's interesting. And like growing up in San Antonio, I wasn't always looked at as Asian, besides that my last name is Sumiyoshi. And I grew up around a lot of Hispanic culture. Moving to New York and then meeting up with more family that lives in New Jersey and stuff, and really experiencing like that Indian side and the Japanese side, I've learned so much, and I love all the cultures that encompasses, and there's just so many more out there. And I think that we can really take this month, like everyone can take this month to really expand what they think of just Asian Americans in general and really open their mind to the new horizons.
Yeah, I feel like AAPI month could also encompass, of course, Asian Americans first and foremost, but it's also Asians from Asia. I personally, I feel that that's also a story as well. I'm from Japan originally. I didn't grow up here, so I have a different story than it might be compared to somebody else who grew up in America. And that's both of them are very different, but it's very interesting. I think it needs to be told as well.
I think it goes without saying that our community has dealt with a lot of tragedy, especially in the last couple of years, always, but in the last couple of years, I know it's been especially excruciating for our community. And what I've been reflecting on the last week, as our month has started, is basically that this month feels to me like truly a time for joy and a time for celebration. There's so much tragedy that we deal with every month of the year, but for some reason this last month has really felt like, you know what, it's a good time to reflect and really just focus on Asian joy and the joy that comes from our community. I think it differs for everyone, obviously, but I think that a lot of times when I meet other Asian American artists, we seem to be able to connect on feelings of like isolation and loneliness and being misunderstood. And so the fact that we have the month to be able to like just really celebrate who we are and connect on that makes it feel like the isolation aspect of it goes away. And it's really just a month-long, I don't know, a celebration of joy. That's how it feels to me.
That's an awesome point, and I love that. And I think it's really neat. Like, we've had a really interesting season. We had Diana play the romantic lead in Rock of Ages, right? Okay. And then we have a Disney princess. We then go on to tell this story, South Pacific, that is just iconic characters, right? You know, and so I would love to know, what does it feel like to tell these stories? And I think everyone's perspective is really cool with that. And especially I'd love to hear, Yasmin, what it's like to play all of the different stories, right? Thinking about all of this in representation, kind of in that process. So whoever wants to go first, jump right in.
Sure, I can jump in. Do you want to?
No, I was just gonna say, as an introduction for Yasmin too, is what's amazing is that she's like the perfect example that it doesn't have to be a specific show to fit an Asian American performer in. She like so seamlessly fits into like so many different shows. That's also just a testament to her skill. But anyways, take it, Yasmin.
Well, thank you. That first of all is so sweet and so kind. But yeah, to speak on that, first of all, I'm thankful to TUTS and thankful for everyone, all of my peers in all of these shows who have very graciously welcomed me into those roles. But yeah, I think it's really special to, and as a mixed person as well, it's a testament to like, we're at a time where anyone can do anything, specifically in theater, specifically in the ensemble. Of course, there are roles that occasionally when we're speaking of race in theater that need to be cast a certain way, but when it does not, it should be open to anybody. And being a dancer and being an ensemblist for the most part, like it was really special this whole past season to really to be in there with my Mer sisters in Little Mermaid, like Delphi being one of my sisters, which is so incredible. And then we had some Black performers, we had some white performers, like it was just a mixture. And that's how it should be. Like King Triton is our dad, and it can be whatever. We're fishes, like we're mermaids. I think that's so special. And then telling the story of South Pacific was like such a turn because it was more serious subject matter, and we were dealing with, you know, certain races playing certain characters. And I'm sure like other people will speak on this more also, but we dealt with an intimacy and sensitivity coordinator, Anne James, who was fantastic when dealing with like the racial sensitivity part of the show, which was super necessary. And I'll definitely like pass that to Melody to speak more on.
I'll just speak on kind of tackling a very iconic character that has been, you know, in the zeitgeist since 1949, I think. But it's just that the tackling something that I will admit, when I had read the script in the past or seen other iterations, Bloody Mary is a character that has made me cringe, that has made me go, oh, I am uncomfortable. It triggered me in certain ways of the portrayal, the othering of this character, which is written into the script, you know, but tackling it as a performer, you know, my task was to try and find the humanity and to dig deeper than what I was given and find those moments of love and determination and fight and grit. And yes, she's a show person. Yes, she's this, kind of like a salesman in a sense, and she is trying to survive, and she can be over the top, and she can, really appeal to the sailors. But for me, the challenge was to find the humanity. I mean, when you were talking about the violence and the discrimination that we as an Asian American community have been facing, especially in those last couple of years, so often that comes about is because they don't see us as human. So it's important to find that humanity and show that humanity so that people can connect in a deeper way, one-on-one, human to human. And that's what our job as artists is to do, to shed that light for people and to open up a world, to open up that imagination so people can imagine a world that they don't know yet. And that helps us to move forward. I get all emotional.
I totally agree. I mean, that's beautiful what Melody said. I feel like this like otherness that people might perceive as Asians, it's like the other. So that if that could be shown a different light and seen as a human, as a whole person, people would see, us as a human and just like everybody else, just like white people and black people and Hispanic people, everybody else. So I just to connect to that, to my character Liat, I only have 6 lines written in the script, and it was such a challenge. It was a beautiful challenge to portray the wholeness of the person. I really enjoyed lots of nonverbal communication that I got to do on stage. And I think that maybe all the more I got to connect deeply with Melody, with Nigel, who played Lieutenant Cable. And it was a different kind of connection that we really created on stage. And I felt really special. Those are the special moments. And I hope that it translated on stage. And I hope that I did, I was able to portray a whole person, not just this Tonkinese girl who spoke 6 lines on stage, but the whole person.
We saw that dance that you did, and that was like a whole entire existence of a human in one dance. I could cry thinking
Thank you.
that video. I didn't see it live. I saw this video, but I was like, oh my God, she has so much more depth, even just from the entirely nonverbal part of that show. Oh man.
Thank you so much. I mean, again, it's like Courtney Jones. I really feel like these creative forces are really, really propelled our experience to really make these people real on stage, not just a caricature or just the other of the story.
Yeah. Speaking of that othering feeling, I feel like the 2 shows that I've done at TUTS have been playing characters who are other, like Disney princesses are the other. That's like their entire thing. So it's always been a pleasure playing those roles because I relate to it so much on that perspective. And TUTS really becomes like this sort of playground for you to explore that and find ways to like create a nuanced other. So then when these audiences are seeing an Asian American person play a princess, it's not just like the basic princess thing. It's like, so they have no choice but to see someone who they've always considered, that's too general, but someone that could be seen as other playing this other role, but because of the nature of the show, you get to explore all of these different ways to just infuse it with all this nuance and almost show them like why this person might be seen as othered, and then really bring out the best parts of them. And I feel like that's so, it correlates so well between like being an Asian American artist as well as like being the characters that I've been lucky enough to play at TUTS.
Through the roles that you've played, so we've got, you know, a Disney princess, a mermaid, someone from the a nurse from the 1940s, two iconic South characters from South Pacific. What is the biggest impact or the thing that you've learned through your time here, and even, you know, after the show has ended, something that you've kind of taken away from that? Like, what have you learned and seen from that?
This is kind of going back to 2018 when I was doing Beauty and the Beast. But we did the Thanksgiving Day parade that year, and I could not have asked for a more impactful experience. We got to ride the float. We got to perform, and then we got to ride the float, which we couldn't do during Little Mermaid because I think weather.
Yeah, it started to rain.
Yeah, it was a weather thing. I was so bummed. But basically, I didn't know at the time, but Houston is an overwhelmingly diverse city, which I did not know. And someone kind of mentioned this right before the Thanksgiving Day parade, but when we were on that float, just the sea of kids who were kids of color, and like so many times during that route when we were on that float, we would come closer into view and I would see the kids drop their jaw because they could not believe that people of color were on this float playing these characters that they have always loved. And I will never forget that for the rest of my life, because I remember going to Disneyland as a kid and never seeing myself on a float. Especially when you're mixed race too, it becomes a little complicated with like, okay, where exactly do I fit? So being able to be that person, that was so incredibly impactful. And then going into that run, and then also going into the run for Little Mermaid, it's now never lost on me, the fact that even if I think I'm not doing my best, or no matter how I feel about what I'm doing that given day, the impact for someone else is so much greater. And that's like just the best possible feeling and takeaway that I could ever have from it.
I have a similar, somewhat of a similar story. It actually spans back to when I did Mamma Mia, which was in 2019. And it was my second TUTS show ever. We did a talk back with some kids that had come for our student matinee. And this is pre-COVID and everything, but we got to talk to them a bit. I sat there with the rest of the cast. I really didn't say anything in the talk back, but afterwards, this middle school girl came up to me and she was just like, I've never seen anyone on stage with your hair, with like your curls. And it literally made me like cry in front of this sixth grader. Like, but she was so sweet. She was so earnest in saying like, I've never seen that before. Like, and she had this beautiful curly hair. And she was like, that makes me feel like I could do that. And she's not even a performer, but she was just so happy to see that representation. And we took a picture together. I got her Instagram. We still are in touch. Like, I really made a friend that day. No matter if you missed a step that day, if you hit a bad note, like somebody is in the audience thinking, wow, like that's something that I could potentially do. And I've never known that before.
And TUTS is really good about reaching out and really trying to create a diverse cast, and that includes the high schoolers that are involved, that are part of the educational program, and then they have the opportunity to audition for these bigger shows. To be able to hang out with some of these kids and chat with them, and talk about how there are going to be families out in that audience that see you up there, and they're going to see themselves in you, and how important that is. And for them to be able to see, other performers of color who have made it their life, who have created a career for themselves, and to see that other professionals working is really exciting, and so I'm really thankful for TUTS for creating those opportunities as well.
It's a little different, but connected to this current question. This is about actually melody, because we're having a conversation, many conversations among many different group of people about your representation of the character Bloody Mary and the portrayal of her. And at one point, you said something about, well, if you take out, well, let's say it is usually, criticized by many people that it's, like you said, it's cringy character, it's racist, but it's written in the script and it is outdated, old, stuff like that. But you said something about,
Oh, I didn't mean to, but I was just gonna say our assistant director, who is Asian American, like when we started rehearsing and we started to rehearse our number, he was like, "I hate this number. I hate this song. I hate," like there was so much about it, about the character he hated, and he made it known, Alan.
yes, yes, so true, so true. But then you said one point. I'm sorry, what?
I said we had our work cut out for us. Go ahead.
Yes, no, yes. And you said one point that if you cut out accents or if you change it, let's just just because of those reasons, if you cut those things out, that's wrong too. That's like erasing someone's history as well. And that resonated with me. And I thought, it's almost like a light bulb moment of like, that's right. If you cut out accents or if you just cut out those characters altogether, that's not right either. And I thought, that's our work is how can we portray correctly, authentically, genuinely. Those are the tasks that we need to go focused and we need to go forward the direction wise.
Yeah.
So I thought that's just like kind of like something that you brought it up on the table, and I brought it back home, and I still think about those things. How to really dig deeper, like you were saying earlier, and just how to portray authentically.
Yeah. Growing up as a child of immigrants, and oftentimes people, they bristle when they hear an accent, or they think it's someone making fun or making fun of their parents, or they use it to make fun of their parents, or that kind of thing, and it becomes a joke. But I want to honor accents. I want to honor people's journeys, where they come from. It's not even really explicitly said in the script because people don't know necessarily what Tonkinese is, but Tonkinese is actually like North Vietnam. So, sometimes people think, oh, she's a native to the South Pacific. She's actually an immigrant to that country, to that island as well, and she had a journey. And and we worked I worked with a dialect coach to have those colors in the lines. So even though it wasn't said, oh, by the way, Tonkinese is North Vietnamese, but it's like you want to create a real character with real experience. And when we tell American stories, when we tell stories about the immigrant experience, I want to honor that. I don't want to erase that. I want to know that, oh, this person gave up so the life that they knew to create a different life and to venture forward and create a life for their family. And they learned a new language and they learned multiple languages, some of them, in order to survive and thrive. And that needs to be recognized and honored.
Absolutely.
I feel like there are so many like stereotypes that can come in with any non-white race, But with Asian American, I find that like the, subservient stereotype comes into play a lot. And yeah, things like the accent thing comes in a lot. And I I think that what's way more interesting to do is like really, like what Rei was saying, really just explore the ways to kind of like have your own little subtle rebellion towards that in ways that people don't necessarily notice sometimes. But once you're doing them, you're like, speaking from my own experience, just like, Disney Princess Central, so easy to fall into like a subservient place with that. But when you're Asian and you're playing a traditionally subservient role, it's like it's the kiss of death. Like you just have to find ways to like fight, because everything about immigrants moving and learning languages and giving up lives that they had before, like it's actually the most courageous thing. It's actually the most like fierce, brave thing that you could do. And so it's completely lost on me why this like subservient, timid, weak stereotype is on our community at all. But that's the sort of thing that I think is so important to highlight when you're playing roles like that, and any role really.
I want to ask, we have a lot of students on our social media pages. We have a lot of kids that are part of our programs, but also a lot of kids that want to go into theater, that are falling in love with musicals and seeing you all online and seeing these videos. And I want to ask, one, what's your best advice for someone who is a part of the AAPI community who wants to go into musical theater, that wants to start telling these stories? And also kind of following up with that, what's your excitement and hope for these kids that, they'll get to see in their time as they become actors, and kind of where you hope that we can go with representation and storytelling?
I remember when I was a kid and wanting to perform, that I felt like I was bending over backwards to blend in and to erase the things that made me different, to try to fit in as much as I could. And as you get older, you realize embracing the things that make you different is what makes you stand out. It's what makes you special. It's your superpower, your experiences, whether it's being an immigrant, being a child of immigrant, being of mixed race, whatever your unique experience is, that's what you want. I want to lean into that. And I remember when I was first starting out, I had agents tell me to change my name. I had agents tell me, to learn Spanish because I didn't look very Asian. And all of these things, like they didn't know what I'm Filipino, that they didn't know what Filipinos were, and you're not going to audition for Filipinos, so you should play that down and try to find something else. I am Filipino. I am the children of Filipino immigrants. I'm the child of Filipino immigrants. I embrace my history, my parents' history, and now Filipino stories are being told. I've done musicals where I've played Filipinos. I've told the history of the Filipino, the people power movement in the Philippines with shows that I've done in New York and around the country. And I have a movie that's about to come out in August with
Yay! That's awesome.
Boy is the first studio feature featuring a Filipino American family. We have had independent films and telling Filipino stories, and those are so exciting and groundbreaking. But this is the first studio-backed feature produced by Steven Spielberg, Amblin, Universal, Rideback, that is centering and uplifting a Filipino American family.
Everything Melody said, that was incredible and beautiful. I think just coming into this age, don't be afraid to say yes more, because you're the main person who can count yourself out. Like if you never try, you're really never gonna get the opportunity. So really just putting yourself out there. I know I struggle with this a lot still, being like, looking at auditions and saying like, okay, well, they're probably not going to want to cast me because of this or because of this, because I look this way. And you're just counting yourself out. Like, you know, so many times they're going to say no. And so why say no to yourself before letting them do that? So yeah, I think say yes, and just really know that whatever room you're in, whether it be an audition room, a rehearsal room, on stage, you have just as much right to be there as anyone else.
I remember when I was in college, I was told that we had a unit where we were picking material to work on in class from a show. And I was told that I should either work on The King and I, or I should work on Miss Saigon. And I knew back then, but I so desperately wanted to fit into the industry somehow that I was convinced that I had to be able to do one or the other. And I am not right for either. And so I spent a lot of time feeling like, well, I got to figure out how I'm going to fit in. And I think the biggest thing that I've learned since graduating is that when you just stick to it and you work really hard and you're easy to work with, that the industry will form your career in the way that it's supposed to be formed. Not to take any sort of like responsibility or like anything off of yourself and what you're doing, because you control your own, you know, the way that it goes for yourself. But I found that even if you don't feel like you fit in, you do fit in somewhere, and it becomes very apparent the more that you just stick to it. And you, like Yasmin said, just keep saying yes and keep trying different things, because those shows were from years ago. And there are new shows being written every day, and there are new perspectives being formed every day, and there are people who will want you to do Disney shows. And you never know. I was literally just saying to some friends last night, I never could have guessed when I was in college that I would end up playing Disney princesses as a pretty big part of my career in my life. I never had any clue. So you just never know. Just stick to it, and you do belong somewhere. You just have to work hard and stick to it, give up, and it'll show itself to you.
I mean, everyone said pretty much everything that I was thinking also. But yeah, I think that industry is thankfully turning around to see all colors as equal. And I think that that perspective will prevail even further. And now is the time. I think that everyone can be seen as a person as a whole. And I think these young people just keep going and should pursue the thing that they want to do, whether on stage or elsewhere. And yeah, I think it's a great time to be growing up and seeing all the role models on stage.
Awesome. Oh, guys, that was awesome. Thank you so much for taking time to just talk with me about all of this and to talk and share your perspectives. I learned so much, and it's just really cool to hear how much power and strength you brought to these roles here at TUTS, but also the impact you're making within the theater community as a whole. And it's just really cool to see. And I'm really glad we got to get together and talk about everything. But I am just so thankful that y'all all took time today to make this happen, and just know that y'all are all so appreciated.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.